Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, staring at the wall of screens that showed radar readings from around the globe. It was just another Tuesday morning at the United Defense Force headquarters in Colorado. He expected to spend the day reviewing training reports and checking supply inventories. Instead, the screen started lighting up with contacts that should not have been there. "Sir, we have multiple unknown objects appearing over major cities," called out Lieutenant Amy Stone from her station. Her voice stayed calm, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. "They're big, sir, really big." Jake stood up and walked to the main display. Red dots appeared over New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, and 12 other cities around the world. The objects were massive, each one roughly the size of a football stadium. They had appeared without warning, materializing in Earth's atmosphere, as if they had always been there. "Get me President Carter on the line," Jake ordered, "and contact Admiral Tucker at the Pentagon. I want to know if anyone saw these things coming." The answer came back quickly. No one had detected the ships before. They appeared. Earth's most advanced radar systems, satellite networks, and space monitoring stations had seen nothing. The objects had simply appeared in the sky above, major population centers at exactly the same moment. President Lisa Carter arrived at the White House Situation Room within 20 minutes. She looked at the satellite feeds showing massive dark shapes hanging motionless in the sky. Crowds of people had gathered in the streets below, pointing upward and taking pictures with their phones. The ships cast enormous shadows on the cities beneath them. "How long have they been there?" President Carter asked General Steve Collins, who had been monitoring the situation from the Pentagon. 3 hours and 15 minutes, Madam President," Collins replied. "They haven't moved. They haven't responded to any of our communication attempts. They're just hanging there." Dr. Helen Brooks stood at the back of the room, studying the images on multiple screens. As Earth's leading expert on theoretical alien contact scenarios, she had been called in as soon as the objects appeared. Ships were unlike anything humans had ever built. They were smooth and curved, with no visible weapons or engines. They seemed to be made of a dark material that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. "Have we tried all standard first contact protocols?" she asked. "Everything," replied Communications Director Paul Johnson. "Radio signals on all frequencies, mathematical sequences, even music. Nothing gets a response." Then, at exactly noon Eastern Standard Time, every screen in the Situation Room flickered and went dark. When the displays came back online, they showed something new. A figure appeared on every screen simultaneously. It was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow with its own light. Its face was elongated, with large dark eyes that looked almost human, but not quite. When it spoke, its voice came through every speaker in the room, clear and perfect. "Greetings, people of Earth," the being said. Its English was flawless, with no accent or hesitation. "I am Ambassador Zeth Ka of the Galactic Protection Consortium. We come to you today with an offer that will ensure your survival among the stars." President Carter stepped forward toward the main screen. "Ambassador Zeth Ka, I am President Carter of the United States. We welcome peaceful contact with your people." The alien nodded its elongated head. "Your people have reached a level of development that has attracted attention throughout this region of the galaxy. This attention is not always benevolent. There are forces in the void between stars that consume entire worlds. They leave nothing behind but empty space and silence." Dr. Brooks moved closer to the screens, studying the alien's features and body language. Everything about the being suggested advanced technology and superior knowledge. Yet something felt rehearsed about its presentation, as if it had given this same speech many times before. "We, the Galactic Protection Consortium, have protected hundreds of worlds from these cosmic threats," Zeth Ka continued. We offer this same protection to Earth. Our great ships will shield your world from the dangers you cannot yet comprehend. In return, we ask only for your cooperation and a modest tribute of your planet's resources." Admiral Ryan Tucker, who had been listening from his position at the Pentagon, spoke into his communication device. "What kind of tribute are we talking about?" The alien's large eyes seemed to focus directly on Tucker, even though they were communicating through screens. "Nothing that would harm your people or your world. Some rare metals, technological data, and cultural information. A small price for absolute safety." Captain Amy Stone had been monitoring the alien ships from her station at the Defense Force headquarters. She noticed something that bothered her about their positioning. The ships were not randomly placed over major cities. They formed a perfect geometric pattern around the planet, each one positioned at exactly the right distance and angle to cover maximum territory. It looked less like a protective formation and more like a containment grid. "Sir," she whispered to Commander Morrison, "I'm seeing something unusual about their ship placement. Could you look at this tactical display?" Jake studied the positioning data that Amy had compiled. The ships were indeed arranged in a pattern that would make it impossible for anything to leave Earth without passing close to at least one of them. It was the kind of formation you would use if you wanted to control access to a planet, not protect it. Meanwhile, in laboratories around the world, scientists were trying to analyze the alien technology. The ships emitted no detectable energy signatures. They produced no exhaust or waste heat. They seemed to violate several known laws of physics just by existing. Dr. Marcus Webb at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology ran every scan he could think of, but the ships remained mysterious. The alien ambassador continued its presentation, showing holographic images of destroyed worlds and empty star systems. The images were dramatic and frightening, showing planets reduced to rubble and star systems devoid of life. But Dr. Brooks noticed that the images were vague and generic. They could have been computer-generated simulations rather than actual recordings of destruction. "How long do we have to consider your offer?" President Carter asked. "Time is a luxury that cosmic threats do not respect," Sethka replied. "However, we understand that such a decision requires careful thought. We will give you 72 hours to reach a decision. Consider wisely, people of Earth. This offer may not come again." The transmission ended, leaving the Situation Room. In silence, President Carter looked around at her advisors, military leaders, and scientists. Each face showed a mixture of wonder, fear, and uncertainty. Humanity had just made first contact with an alien civilization, but the circumstances were far from what anyone had expected. Outside, the alien ships continued to hover in perfect stillness above the cities of Earth. They cast their shadows on millions of people who looked up and wondered what this meant for the future of their world. Some saw salvation from unknown dangers. Others saw a threat wrapped in the language of protection dot in her laboratory. Dr. Brooks began compiling questions that needed answers before any decision could be made. At the top of her list, she wrote 4 simple words that would change everything. Protection from what, exactly? Dr. Marcus Webb stared at his computer screens, trying to make sense of the data the aliens had provided. For 18 hours straight, he had been analyzing every piece of information that Ambassador Zithka had shared about the cosmic threats. The more he studied the material, the more confused he became. The alien evidence consisted mainly of dramatic images and vague descriptions. They showed destroyed planets and empty space, but they provided no details about what had caused the destruction. No energy signatures, no weapon traces, no timeline of events. It was like looking at a movie trailer instead of a scientific report. "This doesn't make sense," Webb muttered to his research assistant, Dr. Laura Chun. "If these threats are real, where are the specifics? Where are the measurements, the data readings, the technical analysis. Laura looked up from her own screen. Maybe their science is so advanced that we wouldn't understand their methods? Webb shook his head. Science is science. Physics works the same way everywhere in the universe. If something destroyed a planet, there should be evidence we can measure and understand. 3 floors below Webb's laboratory, Intelligence Officer Kate Reynolds was conducting her own investigation. She had spent her career tracking down hidden information, and something about the alien arrival bothered her. Their timing was too perfect, their knowledge of human languages too complete, their understanding of Earth's political structure too detailed. Kate pulled up communication logs from the past 6 months. She was looking for any unusual signals or data transmissions that might indicate the aliens had been watching Earth before making contact. Her colleague, cyber analyst Tony Fisher, helped her search through massive amounts of data from satellites and monitoring stations around the world. Found something, Tony said after several hours of searching. Look at this pattern of signals detected by the Arecibo replacement facility in Puerto Rico. Kate studied the data. There were subtle transmissions detected over the past 4 months, always during times when Earth's satellites were positioned in specific ways. The signals were carefully timed to avoid detection by most monitoring systems. Someone had been studying Earth's communication networks for months. They've been watching us, Kate said. They know exactly how our governments work, how our military is organized, even how our media operates. This wasn't a random first contact. This was a planned operation. Meanwhile, President Carter convened another emergency meeting in the White House Situation Room. The world's leaders had been in constant communication since the alien arrival, and opinions were divided. Some countries wanted to accept the protection offer immediately. Others demanded more information before making any decisions. Secretary of State Nancy Brooks read reports from allies around the world. The European Union is split down the middle. The Asian coalition wants guarantees about the tribute requirements. The African Federation is asking for proof that these cosmic threats actually exist. General Steve Collins spread tactical reports across the table. Our analysis of the alien ship positions confirms Captain Stone's observations. They're arranged in a blockade formation, not a protective one. If we wanted to launch anything into space, we'd have to get past their ships first. Dr. Helen Brooks, who had been studying recordings of the alien ambassador, raised her hand. I'd like to request another communication session with Zethka. There are questions that need answers before we can make an informed decision. President. Carter nodded. Set it up. And this time, I want our best people asking the questions. The communication session began 2 hours later. Ambassador Zethka appeared on screens around the world, his silver skin glowing as before. This time, however, the questions came from scientists, military experts, and intelligence specialists who had prepared carefully. Dr. Brooks spoke first. Ambassador Zethka, you mentioned cosmic threats that destroy worlds. Can you provide us with specific information about these threats? What are they made of? How do they operate? What technology do they use? The aliens' large eyes seemed to shift slightly. These entities exist beyond your current understanding of physics. They are forces of chaos that consume matter and energy. Your primitive science lacks the concepts necessary to comprehend their true nature. But surely you could provide some basic measurements, Dr. Webb interjected from his laboratory connection. Energy outputs, mass readings, anything we could verify independently? Zethka's response came after a noticeable pause. Such information would only confuse your people. Trust in our knowledge and experience. We have protected hundreds of worlds from these threats. Captain Amy Stone, monitoring from the Defense Force headquarters, asked the next question. Can you tell us about some of these other worlds you've protected? What are their names? Where are they located? Could we communicate with them to verify your claims? Another pause. The worlds under our protection maintain communication silence for security reasons. Contact with unprotected worlds could attract the attention of the entities we guard against. Intelligence. Officer Kate Reynolds leaned forward at her desk. Every instinct she had developed during years of investigating deception was now screaming warnings. The aliens' answers were evasive, vague, and designed to shut down further questions. "Ambassador," she said, "you seem to know a great deal about Earth already. Our languages, our governments, our technology. How long have you been observing?" Our world? For the first time, Zethka looked uncomfortable. "We became aware of your world recently, when your technology reached levels that attracted cosmic attention. But our analysis shows evidence of observation signals dating back months." "Before your arrival," Kate pressed. "Why didn't you warn us about these threats earlier, if you were already watching us?" The alien's glowing skin seemed to dim slightly. "Your questions show the paranoia and mistrust that makes your species vulnerable to cosmic threats. We offer protection, and you respond with suspicion." Dr. Brooks exchanged glances with President Carter. "We're not being suspicious, Ambassador. We're being thorough. Any major decision requires complete information. Surely you understand this?" "Time grows short," Zethka replied, his voice taking on a sharper tone. "The entities that threaten worlds do not wait for lengthy deliberations. You have 48 hours remaining to accept our protection. Use this time wisely." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the human participants staring at blank screens. President Carter looked around the situation room at her advisors. "Thoughts?" "He's hiding something," Kate Reynolds said immediately. Every answer was designed to avoid giving us real information. General Collins nodded. "And that comment about our paranoia and mistrust bothers me. Since when do protectors get angry when people ask reasonable questions?" Dr. Brooks was taking notes rapidly. "We need to find out what's really going on. If these cosmic threats are real, we should be able to detect some evidence of them. And if they're not real, then we need to know what the consortium really wants." President Carter made her decision. "I'm authorizing a covert space reconnaissance mission. Captain Stone, I want you to take a team beyond our solar system and look for evidence of these supposed threats. Use our most advanced stealth technology." Captain Stone nodded from her remote connection. "Understood, Madam President." "When do we launch?" "Tonight," Carter replied. "And Captain, be careful. I have a feeling we're about to discover that this protection offer isn't what it seems to be." In laboratories and intelligence centers around the world, teams of scientists and analysts worked through the night. They searched for any evidence of cosmic threats, any proof that the Galactic Protection Consortium was telling the truth. Instead, they found more questions and fewer answers. The alien ships remained motionless above Earth's cities, casting their shadows on millions of people who were beginning to wonder if their supposed protectors might actually be something else entirely. In coffee shops and internet forums, ordinary people started asking the same questions their leaders were asking. The most common question, posted thousands of times across social media platforms, was simple and direct. If they're here to protect U.S., why won't they tell us what they're protecting us from? It was a question that would soon change everything. Captain Amy Stone floated in the command chair of the Starship Explorer, watching the blackness of space through the main view screen. Her crew of 12 specialists had launched from the hidden lunar base 6 hours ago, using Earth's most advanced stealth technology to slip past the alien blockade undetected. Engineer Mike Foster monitored the ship's systems while Communications Officer Lucy Adams kept watch for any signs they had been discovered. "Status report," Amy said quietly, though. There was no one in space to hear them. "All systems running silent," Mike replied. "The stealth field is holding steady. If anyone's scanning for us, They won't find us unless they know exactly where to look. Lucy checked her instruments. No communication signals detected from the alien ships. They don't seem to know we're out here. The Explorer was humanity's newest deep space vessel, built in secret over the past 3 years. It could travel faster than any previous human ship and remain invisible to most detection systems. If the cosmic threats that Zethka described were real, this mission would find evidence of them. Back on Earth, Director of Space Operations Rachel Breen coordinated the mission from a hidden command center beneath NASA headquarters. She worked closely with Administrator Carl Rivers, monitoring the Explorer's progress and analyzing the data they transmitted back to Earth. How long until they reached the coordinates? Rachel asked. Carl checked his displays. Another 4 hours. To the outer edge of our solar system. If there are any signs of these cosmic threats, that's where we should start finding them. Meanwhile, in a basement facility in Washington, codebreaker Jennifer Walsh was having more success than anyone expected. She had been working with analyst Peter Gray to decrypt the alien communication signals that Intelligence Officer Kate Reynolds had discovered. The breakthrough came when they realized the aliens were using a mathematical encryption based on prime numbers. Peter, look at this, Jennifer said, pointing to lines of decoded text scrolling across her screen. I've cracked part of their internal communications. Peter leaned over her shoulder to read the alien messages. What he saw made his blood run cold. The messages weren't about protection or cosmic threats. They were discussing Earth in terms. That sounded more like a business transaction than a rescue mission. They're calling us the new harvest, Peter read aloud. And look at this reference to previous acquisitions in Sector 7 and 12. They're talking about other worlds like they're collecting them. Jennifer scrolled through more decoded messages. Here's something about standard integration, protocols and resource extraction timelines. This doesn't sound like protection. This sounds like conquest. She immediately contacted Kate Reynolds, who rushed to the facility with Dr. Marcus Webb. When they saw the decoded messages, the truth became clear. The Galactic Protection Consortium wasn't protecting worlds from cosmic threats. They were the threat. They've done this before, Kate said, reading message after message about other worlds that had been protected and then slowly absorbed into the consortium's empire. This is their standard operating procedure. They show up, claim our dangers, offer protection, and then gradually take control. Dr. Webb studied the technical data hidden in the messages. Look at this analysis of their own ships. The technology isn't as advanced as they want us to believe. They're using fusion power and basic gravity manipulation. We've seen more sophisticated technology from the deep space probes we've detected from other civilizations. Far beyond Earth's solar system, Captain Stone's mission was making discoveries of its own. The Explorer had reached the edge of known space and begun scanning for any signs of the cosmic threats that Zethka had described. Instead of finding dangerous entities, they found something completely different. Captain, you need to see this, called out Science Officer Dr. Kevin Jones from his station. I'm detecting artificial structures in the next star system. They look like monitoring stations. Amy studied the readings. Are they from the consortium? No, ma'am. The technology is different, much more advanced. And they're old. These stations have been here for thousands of years. The Explorer moved closer to investigate. The monitoring stations were clearly built by an advanced civilization, but they showed no signs of the destruction that Zethka had described. Instead, they appeared to be peacefully recording data about space traffic and stellar phenomena. Captain, Lucy said from her communications post, I'm receiving a signal from one of the stations. It's in multiple languages, including English. Put it through, Amy ordered. A calm mechanical voice filled the bridge. Welcome, travelers from the Sol System. This is Monitoring Station Alpha 7 of the Galactic Survey Network. We have been observing your world's development with interest. Please state your purpose in this region." Amy exchanged glances with her crew. This was definitely not what they had expected to find. "This is Captain Stone of the Earth Vessel Explorer. We're investigating claims of cosmic threats in this region. Can you provide any information about dangerous entities that destroy worlds?" There was a pause before the station responded. "Scanning your vessel's origin point. We show 17 ships from the organization known as the Protection Consortium, currently positioned around your world. Be advised that this organization has been flagged by the Galactic Survey Network as a criminal enterprise." "Criminal enterprise?" Amy asked. "Affirmative. The Protection Consortium operates by deceiving developing worlds about non-existent threats. They extract resources and gradually subjugate populations under the pretense of providing protection. Over 400 worlds have been documented as victims of this organization." Mike Foster leaned forward in his chair. "Are you saying the cosmic threats don't exist?" "Local space is monitored continuously by our network. No hostile entities of the type described by the consortium have been detected in this region for over 12,000 years. The galaxy is remarkably peaceful." Amy felt a mixture of relief and anger. Relief that Earth wasn't facing cosmic destruction, but anger that humanity had been lied to so completely. "Can you provide us with evidence of the consortium's activities?" "Transmitting. Historical data now," the station replied. "You will find records of their operations against hundreds of worlds, including detailed documentation of their methods and outcomes." The data that flooded the explorers' computers was overwhelming. World after world had received the same offer of protection from the same vague threats. Some had accepted immediately and were now resource colonies under consortium control. Others had resisted and been conquered by force. In every case, the consortium had used the same script, the same frightening images, the same promises of safety. "Captain," Dr. Jones said, studying the incoming data, "according to these records, the consortium isn't even particularly powerful. They target worlds that are just reaching space capability because those civilizations don't know enough about galactic politics to see through their deception." Amy made her decision. "Lucy, transmit all of this data back to Earth immediately. Use our fastest communication protocols and send a message to President Carter. Tell her the cosmic threats don't exist, but we have a much bigger problem." On Earth, the decoded alien communications and the data from Captain Stone's mission arrived at almost the same time. President Carter called an emergency session with world leaders, sharing the evidence that the Galactic Protection Consortium was running a massive protection racket across the galaxy. "They're criminals," Carter announced to the assembled leaders. "They've been doing this to worlds across the galaxy for centuries. And now they expect us to become their next victims." Prime Minister Johnson of the United Kingdom studied the evidence. "The question is, what do we do about it? Their ships are still positioned over our cities." General Collins had been analyzing the technical data about the consortium's real capabilities. "According to this intelligence, their technology isn't as superior as they claimed. They're strong enough to bully individual worlds, but not strong enough to handle serious resistance from multiple civilizations." Dr. Helen Brooks, who had been studying the records of other worlds that had faced the consortium, made an important observation. "The reason they've been successful for so long is that each world faces them alone. No one has ever organized a coordinated resistance across multiple star systems." President Carter looked around the room at her advisors and the world leaders on the communication screens. "Then maybe it's time someone did exactly that." Intelligence Officer Kate Reynolds smiled grimly as she reviewed the alien communication. "Intercepts. We have 18 hours left before their deadline expires. I think it's time to give Ambassador Zethka an answer he won't expect." The truth was out. The cosmic threats were fake, The Galactic Protection Consortium were criminals, and humanity had just discovered they weren't facing this threat alone. Across the galaxy, hundreds of worlds were waiting for someone to stand up to their supposed protectors. That someone was about to be humanity. President Carter stood before the cameras in the White House press room, knowing that her next words would be broadcast to every nation on Earth and transmitted to the alien ships hovering above their cities. Behind her stood representatives from every major world power, united in a way that hadn't been seen since the early days of space exploration. Ambassador Zeth Ka of the Galactic Protection Consortium. Carter began, looking directly into the camera. We have carefully considered your offer of protection. After thorough investigation, we have discovered the truth about your organization and your so-called cosmic threats. On the screens around the world, Ambassador Zeth Ka appeared with his usual glowing silver skin. But this time, his large dark eyes showed something that hadn't been there before. Concern. We reject your offer, Carter continued. We know that. The cosmic threats you described do not exist. We know that you have used this same deception against hundreds of other worlds. We know that you are not protectors, but criminals operating a galactic protection racket. Zeth Ka's silver skin seemed to lose some of its glow. Your accusations are baseless and dangerous. You do not understand the forces that threaten your world. Dr. Helen Brooks stepped forward to stand beside the president. We understand perfectly, Ambassador. We have communication records from your own ships discussing Earth as the new harvest. We have contacted the Galactic Survey Network, which has documented your crimes across 400 star systems. We have proof that your threats are manufactured. Lies. The alien ambassador's composed expression finally cracked. You have been in contact with other civilizations? That is forbidden under galactic protection protocols. Whose protocols? General Collins asked, moving into view of the cameras. The protocols of an organization that lies to entire worlds and steals their resources? We don't recognize your authority over Earth or any other world. From her position aboard the Explorer, Captain Amy Stone was broadcasting the evidence her team had gathered to worlds across the local galactic region. The data packages included proof of the consortium's deception, records of their crimes, and most importantly, evidence that resistance was possible. This is Captain Stone of the Earth Defense Force. She transmitted on frequencies that the Galactic Survey Network had provided. To all worlds currently under consortium protection, this message contains proof that your protectors are actually your oppressors. The cosmic threats they warn you about do not exist. You can be free. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, Amy's communication systems were flooded with messages from worlds across dozens of star systems. Some had been under consortium control for decades. Others were facing the same choice that Earth had been given. All of them were ready to fight back. On the world of Kepler 442, Governor Elena Vasquez received the human transmission while meeting with her own consortium overseer. She had suspected for years that something was wrong with their protection arrangement, but had never dared to voice her doubts. Now she had proof. The protection fee you demand this month will not be paid, she told the startled consortium official. In fact, no further fees will ever be paid. Your ships will leave our system within 24 hours, or we will consider you hostile invaders. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as world after world received the evidence that Earth had broadcast. The consortium, which had operated through fear and isolation for centuries, suddenly found themselves facing coordinated resistance on a scale they had never imagined. Back on Earth, engineer Maya Rodriguez worked frantically in a secure facility beneath the Nevada desert. Her team had been reverse engineering the consortium technology for months, studying energy signatures and propulsion systems from the alien ships. Now they were putting that knowledge to use in ways the consortium never expected. The shield generators are online. Maya reported to Admiral Ryan Tucker via secure communication. Our analysis shows that their weapons operate on predictable energy frequencies. We can block them. Admiral Tucker nodded grimly from his command center. What about their propulsion systems? That's the interesting part, Maya replied. Their ships use gravitational manipulation, but it's a fairly basic design. We figured out how to disrupt it. If we can get close enough, we can disable their ability to maneuver. The breakthrough had come when Dr. Marcus Webb realized that the consortium's technology was actually less advanced than some of the automated systems that humanity had detected from truly advanced civilizations. The consortium had built their empire by targeting worlds that couldn't tell the difference between superior technology and impressive-looking but outdated equipment. It's like being threatened by someone with a musket when you thought they had a laser rifle, Webb explained to his research team. Once you realize what you're actually dealing with, the threat becomes manageable. President Carter received hourly updates as the galactic rebellion spread. Worlds that had been paying tribute to the consortium for generations were declaring independence. Star systems were forming defensive alliances. A criminal organization that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was facing its first real challenge. Madam President, Communications Director Paul Johnson reported, "We're receiving messages of support from 47 different star systems. They're all willing to coordinate their resistance efforts with Earth." Ambassador Zeeth Ka appeared on the screens again, but this time his calm demeanor was completely gone. His silver skin had dulled to a grayish color, and his large eyes showed something that looked like panic. "You do not understand what you have done," he said, his voice no longer smooth and confident. "You have doomed your world and countless others. Without our protection, you will fall to forces beyond your comprehension." President Carter smiled coldly. "The only force we need protection from is your organization, Ambassador. And that protection is going to come from our own strength and the alliance of free worlds that you helped create through your crimes." Colonel Dan Murphy, monitoring from the Pentagon, watched as consortium ships above other Earth cities began moving into defensive formations. "They're preparing for a fight," he reported. "All ships are powering up weapons and shields." "Let them come," General Collins replied. "Our people are ready." Around the world, hidden defense installations came online. Weapons systems that had been disguised as communication arrays revealed their true purpose. Shield generators that Maya Rodriguez's team had built using consortium technology created protective barriers over major population centers. Captain Stone, still broadcasting from deep space, continued coordinating with the growing galactic alliance. "Earth Defense Force to all allied worlds," she transmitted. "The consortium is preparing to use force against Earth. This is your chance to strike back while their attention is divided." The response came immediately. Across dozens of star systems, worlds that had been paying tribute to the consortium for decades launched coordinated attacks against their oppressors. Ships that had been hidden for years emerged from asteroid fields and moon bases. Weapons that had been disguised as industrial equipment revealed their true nature. Dr. Helen Brooks, monitoring the galactic communications from her laboratory, realized that they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. "This is the first time anyone has organized effective resistance against the consortium," she told her research team. "Most worlds either surrendered immediately or fought alone and lost. But we've shown everyone that coordinated resistance is possible." Ambassador Zethkay made one final transmission to Earth. His appearance had changed dramatically. The glowing silver skin was now a dull gray, and his confident demeanor had been replaced by barely controlled desperation. "This is your final warning," he said. "Submit to consortium protection immediately, or face the consequences of your defiance." President Carter looked directly into the camera for her response. "Ambassador, You misunderstood something fundamental about humanity from the beginning. We don't surrender to bullies. We don't pay extortion. And we definitely don't abandon our allies when they need us. She paused, letting her words sink in before delivering the message that would echo across the galaxy. Earth's answer to the Galactic Protection Consortium is simple. We reject your fake protection. We deny your false authority. And we stand with every world that wants to be free from your criminal empire. If you want to fight, you'll get one. But you won't be fighting just Earth. You'll be fighting everyone you've ever wronged. The battle for galactic freedom was about to begin. The first shots of the galactic war came not from Earth, but from a small mining world in the Vega system. The planet's inhabitants had been paying tribute to the consortium for 30 years, watching their resources drain away while their children grew up in poverty. When they received Earth's broadcast proving the cosmic threats were fake, 3 decades of anger exploded into action. Governor Elena Vasquez stood on the command deck of her world's hidden defense platform as it fired on the consortium tribute ship. The massive vessel, which had seemed so intimidating for so many years, shuddered under the impact of weapons that the miners had built in secret. This is for every child who went hungry while you stole our food, Elena said as her weapons tore through the consortium ship's shields. Similar scenes played out across 47 star systems as worlds that had been oppressed for decades finally fought back. The consortium, which had built its empire on the assumption that resistance was impossible, found itself under attack on multiple fronts simultaneously. Above Earth, Ambassador Zethka watched his carefully constructed empire crumble in real time. Reports flooded in from consortium commanders across the galaxy, all carrying the same message. The tributary worlds were in open rebellion, and they were winning. How is this possible? Zethka demanded of his tactical officer. These are primitive worlds with basic technology. Sir, they're using our own methods against us, the officer replied nervously. They've reverse-engineered our equipment and coordinated their attacks. We're facing organized resistance for the first time in our history. On Earth, Admiral Ryan Tucker coordinated the planet's defense from his command center in Colorado. The shield generators that Maya Rodriguez had built using consortium technology were holding strong against the alien weapons. More importantly, the disruptor systems were working exactly as planned. Fire disruption pulse on my mark, Tucker ordered as consortium ships moved into attack formation above New York City. 3, 2, 1 mark. The invisible pulse of energy struck the lead consortium ship, and its smooth movement suddenly became erratic. The gravitational systems that kept it aloft flickered and failed, sending the massive vessel spinning out of control. Direct hit, reported Colonel Dan Murphy from his monitoring station. Their ship is losing altitude and power. Whatever Maya's team did to their propulsion systems, it's working. Captain Amy Stone, still commanding the Explorer in deep space, had become the unofficial coordinator of the galactic resistance. Her ship served as a communication hub, relaying messages between rebel worlds and coordinating their attacks. All allied forces, this is Captain Stone, she broadcast. The consortium is pulling ships from Earth to defend their other territories. Now is the time to press your advantage. The response was immediate and devastating. Worlds that had been preparing for this moment for decades launched coordinated strikes against consortium facilities. Space stations that had served as collection points for tribute were destroyed. Ships that had terrorized entire systems found themselves outnumbered and outgunned by the very civilizations they had oppressed. Dr. Helen Brooks, monitoring the galactic communications from her laboratory, realized they were witnessing the end of an era. The consortium built their empire on isolation and fear, she explained to President Carter during a brief communication break. Once the world started working together and sharing information, the whole system collapsed. The turning point came when the ancient Galactic Survey Network decided to take direct action. For thousands of years, they had observed galactic events without interfering, bound by strict non-intervention policies. But humanity's exposure of the consortium's crimes had given them the legal justification they needed to act. Admiral Stone received the message while coordinating resistance efforts from the Explorer. Captain Stone, this is Survey Station Alpha 7. We are authorized to provide direct assistance to your rebellion. Transmitting coordinates for Consortium High Command. The coordinates led to a massive space station hidden in an asteroid field, surrounded by the most powerful ships in the Consortium fleet. It was the nerve center of their entire operation, protected by centuries of secrecy and misdirection. All Allied forces. Amy broadcast to the rebel fleets. We have the location of Consortium High Command. This is our chance to end their empire permanently. The final battle brought together ships from dozens of worlds, united in their determination to end the Consortium's reign of terror. Humanity's Explorer fought alongside vessels from mining worlds, agricultural planets, and industrial systems. The fleet that had once seemed so powerful found itself facing the combined might of everyone they had ever wronged. Ambassador Zeth Ka, commanding the defense from his flagship, watched in horror as his forces were systematically destroyed by former victims using his own technology against him. The weapons and shields that had made the Consortium seem invincible were no match for the ingenuity and determination of free civilizations working together. Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 of our commanders, his tactical officer reported. Our forces are being overwhelmed on all fronts. Zethka's silver skin had faded to an ugly gray color, and his confident demeanor had completely vanished. Send a message to the human leader, he said finally. Request terms for surrender. President. Carter received the surrender request while standing in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by leaders from around the world. The woman who had rejected the Consortium's protection offer was now in position to dictate terms to a galactic empire. Ambassador Zethka, Carter said when the communication channel opened, you're in no position to request anything. You will surrender unconditionally and submit to trial for crimes against hundreds of worlds. The trials that followed lasted 6 months and were broadcast across the galaxy. Former Consortium officials faced justice for centuries of extortion, theft, and oppression. The tribute they had stolen was returned to the worlds they had robbed. The empire that had seemed so powerful crumbled completely when its lies were exposed. 1 year after the Consortium's defeat, Captain Amy Stone stood on the bridge of Earth's first interstellar embassy ship. She had been promoted to admiral and given the task of establishing formal diplomatic relations with the free worlds of the galaxy. Admiral Stone, reported her communications officer, were receiving welcome messages from the Vega system. Governor Vasquez is requesting a cultural exchange program with Earth. Amy smiled as she looked out at the stars that no longer held any threats for humanity or their allies. Send our acceptance, and let her know that Earth looks forward to a long friendship. Dr. Helen Brooks, now serving as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Survey Network, was working to establish protocols for protecting developing worlds from future exploitation. Her office received reports daily from civilizations that were just reaching space capability, all of them grateful for the protection that came from genuine cooperation rather than manufactured fear. President Carter, in her final address to the United Nations, summarized what humanity had learned from their encounter with the Consortium. When someone offers you protection, the first question you should ask is, protection from what? The second question should be, what do you want in return? And if the answers don't make sense, don't be afraid to ask harder questions. The galaxy had learned that real protection didn't come from paying tribute to self-appointed guardians. It came from worlds working together, sharing information, and refusing to be intimidated by those who would exploit their fears. Earth had asked a simple question. From who? That question had exposed the greatest lie in galactic history and freed hundreds of worlds from centuries of oppression. In asking that question, humanity had proven that sometimes the most powerful weapon against tyranny is simply refusing to believe what you're told without proof. The Galactic Protection Consortium was gone, but the alliance of free worlds that had risen to defeat them grew stronger every day. And at the center of that alliance was a small blue planet whose inhabitants had learned that the best protection comes from standing together and never being afraid to ask the right questions. Stars were free, and Earth had shown them the way.